Good afternoon, directors. Confirmation of quorum. We have quorum. Call the meeting to order. We acknowledge that we are located on the traditional territory of the Lakota people. Adoption of agenda.
So moved.
Whoa, that was everybody. Okay, Director Wally, second.
Second.
Director Davis. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Delegations. We have Garth Thorogood, Vice President of Public Trust for BC Energy Regulator. Please.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for allowing me to make this presentation. I am with the Public Trust team, which is involved in external and internal communications across the province. The BC Energy Regulator, previously known as the Oil and Gas Commission, is probably somewhat unknown to the Strathcona Regional District, but with the recent legislation, the Renewable Energy Projects Act being passed and receiving royal assent, it will eventually hand over the responsibility of renewable energy projects like the Brewster Wind Project to us. So I thought it would be important for me to come and give you a quick overview of who we are and how things work. This way. Keep pointing it. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to cover over a few brief things on who we are and what we do and how we regulate, what we regulate, and then if there's any questions, I know that Dave made it clear that he wanted me about 10 minutes, so I'm gonna slam through some of these slides and hopefully not bore you to tears. Okay, the BC Energy Regulator, we're the agency responsible for overseeing energy activities in BC. We regulate energy resources, including oil and gas for the most part, and it's all governed under the Energy Resource Activities Act. It's been in place. It was the Oil and Gas Activities Act previously. We were established in 1998, so we've actually been around for quite some time. We are a Crown agency that does not fall under the general revenue category of government. We are self-funded. So we do that through applications and levies, specifically on oil and gas wells, production, and then pipeline. Currently, we're also looking after LNG Canada, Coastal GasLink, the levies for that. We will be creating regulations that will allow us to do a cost recovery for renewables. We're not quite sure what that looks like. That's part of the reason why I'm here to talk to you guys, give you a little bit of overview of what we do. So we are a life cycle energy regulator, a little bit different than some of the other agencies in government. We actually start to work with proponents right from the ground level planning, right through to planning for what the project will look like when it's done. So what does the restoration look like? Currently, our regulations cover off, of course, well pads and pipelines and things like that. In 2023, we moved from the Oil and Gas Commission to the BC Energy Regulator to kind of cover off a little bit more of the mandate that we have. We were expanded to look after hydrogen, ammonia, and methanol, and then a little bit of expanded powers for carbon storage reservoirs. And now, of course, the further expanded mandate makes our name, the BC Energy Regulator, a little bit more obvious. Regulatory framework. We have a board, and that board has regulatory making authority, a little bit different. So the regulations, our board regs govern how we will actually permit projects. Most of our decisions are actually done under government delegations of authority. So we make the same decisions under the Land Act, Water Act, other bodies of legislation in the government. We make the decisions on behalf of the ministries. So we are a single window. We will be able to do everything for the Brewster Wind Project once we have the authority to do so. Kind of important to see in there that we kind of do a bit of a combination of results-based and prescriptive regulations. So as we all start to move towards things, we saw this in the forestry sector when we started to move to, if you have a registered professional forester signing things off, we look at that same type of thing as to if a proponent's providing us with the information to make our decisions, we can sometimes make the decisions based on that. Permitting energy resource activities. So companies looking to explore and develop, this is kind of more geared towards the oil and gas side. And we will be working on developing our board regs as to what it's going to look like for wind and other renewable projects. We have the legislative authority to make the decisions on proposed activities within our diverse expertise. So we have about 300 people that work for our organization. We have 7 offices around the province. We have, of course, the office in Victoria, which I drove from this morning. We have another main office in Fort St. John, and then we have satellite offices in Kelowna, Fort Nelson, Dawson Creek, Terrace, and Prince George. So we are covering most of the province. We are, of course, looking at expanding, probably taking on a few more people and resources to manage the permitting expectations and the life cycle regulatory aspect of renewable energy. Single window approach. Like I said, it is a little bit unique. Instead of going around through a number of different agencies to get permitting for a project, companies or proponents can come to us and we can manage it right from the beginning to the end. It does make things streamlining. So the Renewable Energy Projects Act was in brackets called the Streamlining Act as well. And it's really a matter of looking at efficiencies. I think we've seen that both on the provincial and federal government side of things over the last while when it comes to major projects and trying to figure out how we can actually move things along in a more efficient manner to allow for economic diversification and development. You know, I won't say the word from south of the border, but part of it, of course, was the provincial approach to tariffs by a specific president. We work closely with the Environmental Assessment Office to make sure that things are actually moving along the way they are as well for most major projects. Wind projects, as you know, will be exempt from environmental assessment, and we will be doing what essentially is the same thing, but in a shorter time frame. Consultation and notification, this is something that you'll probably take keen interest in, is we have the fiduciary responsibility to consult with First Nations that have or could be impacted by a project, both their Aboriginal rights or treaty rights. We also engage with landowners and local governments and folks that have interest in a project. So currently we have a consultation and notification regulation that governs us and how we do it for oil and gas activities. We will be developing a similar regulation for renewable energy. And when I get to the end of the slides, I'll talk about what our regulatory approach will look like. Edith is very quick at doing this. The compliance and enforcement aspect of things is something that is important for us, both on that life cycle side. So right from the construction, right through operation and everything else. We have not a lot of actual compliance and enforcement officers, but I thought it would be interesting to share the number of inspections that we actually produce a year. And we do get some negative media on this when it comes to oil and gas. So it's a little bit surprising, but with the limited number of compliance and enforcement officers we have, we did over 4,700 inspections last year in the field. That's all of the sites of pipelines, LNG plants, including the ones that are under construction, the ones in Squamish, the ones that are in operation both here on the island as well as on the Fortis Tilbury one, just next to Tsawwassen. We will continue that effort and how we do our compliance and enforcement when we start to take on the regulations of renewable energy. The Energy Resource Activities Act, as I said, covers off petroleum, natural gas, hydrogen, methanol, or ammonia. We also look after geothermal. Geothermal Resources Act and the Petroleum and Natural Gas Act actually govern the subsurface actual content. We just simply look after the activity of withdrawing that. So government still holds the rights to dispose of geothermal and petroleum and natural gas rights. Renewable rights, of course, are different. They are wind, water, those types of things that typically don't need a subsurface tenure. We also will do CO2 capture. We'll look after a little bit more of that. It's in its researches phase, and we'll continue to look in those things. These next two slides are meant to actually try and describe what it is we actually do for our renewables. So this is the wind. So we will not look after the actual construction engineering aspect. So the wind turbines, the stuff in gray is things that we won't look after and regulate. Everything else we will. So the Wildlife Act, Mines Act, Heritage Conservation Act, anything to do with the Agricultural Land Commission or ALR. So we'll make decisions on agricultural land reserves, the Water Sustainability Act. We don't look after work camps unless it needs a Land Act tenure, we could issue it that way, but we don't actually look after the camp itself. So health authorities and things like that will look after those things. This is just the transmission line. So other than renewables, we're also being assigned or prescribed the responsibility to look after the North Coast transmission line and some other prescribed transmission lines, none of them that are on the island at this point in time. The North Coast transmission line is to run from Prince George to Terrace and then Terrace to Prince Rupert to look after mining projects, LNG projects, all of those things. That one is really, we do not look after the engineering or the actual construction aspect of the transmission lines. We are just looking after the natural resource agency purview for that. What's next? This is probably the part that I want to bring more to your attention is we're going to be working closely with our provincial ministry partners on how permits move along. So the Brewster Wind Project, from what we understand, they have applied for a number of investigative type permits. So that would be the right to be able to install a meteorological tower to cover the wind and the temperatures and all of those types of things to help them site where their turbines may be. They may also be applying for investigative permits under the Heritage Conservation Act, which allows them to do some general archaeological looks and make sure that the sites that they are reviewing do not have any impact on things that are protected under the Heritage Conservation Act. Currently, those applications are with the Ministry of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship. They will or might transfer to us, or they might finish off the responsibility and decisions for those investigative permits. We currently don't have the authority. We're expecting the government to pass a regulation soon that brings or enables the legislation, bringing us the responsibility to make those delegated authority decisions for renewable projects. We will follow policy and guidelines from other agencies until we have our board regs ready. So our website currently has a section on what's coming up for our reg affairs, and it includes a whole pile of intention statements or policy statements. So it identifies issues that we expect might come up when we're reviewing and permitting a wind farm. What we're asking for is local governments, First Nations, and the public to review that information and identify anything that may or may not be missing from that list, or let us know how they want to engage on developing the board regs. So it'll be 2 engagement sections. We'll have up until July 31st. We'll ask for comments on the intention statements. We'll take that stuff away. We'll start to develop a little bit more regulatory process. We'll then come back out in September, October for more engagement. And then with the intent, we'll be delivering those regulations to our board for passing them once we get developed, and we'll be dealing with the lawyers at that point. So I'm happy to share, and I don't know if I'll send it to Edith or to Dave, but the access point to our website. You will be getting invited to a virtual workshop covering off what we're doing for regulatory development, but I'm also an easy 3-hour drive. I say easy 3-hour drive. Maybe it's a little more than 3. Might have sped a little bit, but I'm easily able to come up here and have another session as well. So with that, thanks. I hope I didn't blur over things too quickly and that it makes some sense. I'm more than willing to take questions or simply just to share the information from our webpage and some links. I've left some business cards with Edith, so I welcome directors to contact me individually, as a joint, as the board, whatever works for you. So I'm also open to questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Directors, any questions for Garth? Director Mawhinney.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting. And I have a couple of questions that just came up for me as you were speaking. And you were saying that you ensure that the end of life of projects is taken care of. And I was curious if that means that you take a deposit to ensure that the cleanup is successful.
That is part of the regulatory development process. So we'll be looking at doing that. Currently, we do that for oil and gas. So we have an orphan and liability fund. Any proponent, based on their risk, has to put money into a fund. So if they're a large company with not a lot of risk on the financial side, their deposit is lower. And if it's a high risk company, we'll be looking for a much higher deposit. So we'll be looking at something similar for wind, but that is something still yet to be determined by the board regs as well as by government. So if that is something that is of interest or concern for the regional district, then I would suggest making that statement in comments to us.
Okay, in comments in the
To us, and I'll send the website. It's got info, email, all of
Right.
that stuff. And I'm also able to take that note as something that's of interest.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. And you were one of your slides was talking about transmission lines, and would that include transmission lines for run-of-the-river projects?
At this point, no. It could be prescribed to us later on. There is a number of phases that are looking at. The first phase of passing authority over is wind and solar to us, and then very specific prescribed transmission lines. So there's 3 transmission lines. The Montney transmission line, which is made for electrifying the upstream in the oil and gas world to clean up carbon emissions. Currently, a lot of sites burn natural gas to generate their electricity for their compressor sites. We're looking to bring electricity to that. And then the North Coast transmission line is probably the biggest one of focus at this point.
Okay, thank you for that. And then you were talking about a public consultation process. So if people the public is interested in being involved in the, this, providing you suggestions for the regulations, how would they participate in that?
Same way that we asked for the regional districts, we probably won't be doing the same type of invite, but our webpage is currently up and running, and it has information with our policy intention statements as well as how to submit your comments.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any additional comment? Director Von Esch.
Thank you, Chair. Just curious how the potential BC5 or Bill C5 might impact your work. Is there any connection there? Or any comments?
The federal C5, the major projects, at this point in time, I'm not sure what the impact would be, but I would suspect if there's interprovincial projects, which is what most of those would be, it would be similar to what we did for Trans Mountain Pipeline. So the Trans Mountain Pipeline was actually regulated by the Canada Energy Regulator. So the construction of the pipeline itself was them. Any land act or water crossings things we did. So I would suspect it would be similar, but or a joint review, like the LNG Canada also saw a provincial review as well as a federal review when decisions were made on that project.
Thank you. Anyone else? Your microphone is on, Director Moini. No? Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation. Motion to receive,
Move receipt.
Second.
discussion, all in favor? Opposed? See none, motion is carried. Adoption of minutes. That the minutes of the regular meeting held on April 23rd, 2025 be adopted.
So moved.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
Director Von Esch, discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B, that the minutes of the regular board meeting held on May 21st, 2025 be adopted.
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you. Director Von Esch. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Business arising, none. Public considerations, there's no public consideration. Notice of motion, share report. Committee chairs report. Community Health and Wellness Committee, Director Rice.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move that the draft minutes of the inaugural meeting of the Community Health and Wellness Committee held on May 27th, 2025 be received.
Director Kerr, was that correct? Thank you. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Wally, take number 2, please.
Move that the draft minutes of the regular meeting of the Electoral Area Service Committee held on June 4, 2025 be received.
Director Mowini, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Mowini, you would take number 3, please.
Sure thing. I would move that the draft minutes of the regular meeting of the First Nations Relations Committee held on June 4th, 2025 be received.
Second.
Oh, Director Colburn got in there. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Sinnott.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move that the draft minutes of the regular meeting of the Kelsey Center Review Committee held on June 16th, 2025 be received.
Second.
Director Rice. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Chapman, number 5.
That the draft minutes of the special meeting of the Committee of the Whole held on June 18, 2025 be received.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Rice.
Staff reports number one, ESA development permit application for Watkins and Vi. I'd like to move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B.
I'd like to move item B, that the development permit DP 2D25 Van Watkins as attached to the June 9th, 2025 report from the Chief Administration Officer be approved for issuance following the registration of a Section 219 covenant in the Land Title Office that incorporates the April 2022-2025 geotechnical assessment report prepared by McElhaney Limited.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Rice, take number 2, please.
Item 2, development variance permit application. I'd like to move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Second.
Director Von Esch, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'd like to move item B, that the supplementary report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'd like to move item C, that the development variance permit DV 1D25 as attached to the June 11th, 2025 report from the Chief Administration Officer be approved.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Wally, number 3, please.
Move the report from the CAO be received. Request for subdivision frontage relief, Timber West.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
Move that the board approve frontage relief for proposed lot 4 as shown on the plan subdivision attached to the June 11, 2025 report from the CAO.
Second.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Number 4, Director Rice.
Electoral Area D Animal Control Service. I'd like to move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'd like to move item B, that a survey be prepared to gauge public interest and assess the perceived level of service delivery in provision of the animal control service within Electoral Area D.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Mawhinney, number 5.
Thank you, Chair. Quadra Island Solid Waste Collection Study, move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B.
I will move that the Regional District wait for the Wewakai Nation and Comox Strathcona Waste Management to conduct their evaluations of potential service enhancements for solid waste collection on Quadra Island, and that a follow-up report on the status of those potential service and enhancements be prepared for review in 8 months' time.
Second.
Director Von Esch, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Rice, number 6.
Electoral Area D Stormwater Management. I'd like to move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'd like to move item B, that the request for proposals process for detailed design services in connection with Electoral Area D Stormwater Management be initiated in Catchment Area C and the Oyster Bay Rest Area, utilizing the $150,000 available from the 2025 feasibility study budget, with the balance to be funded from unallocated Electoral Area D gas funds.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Morwini, number 7.
Thank you, Chair. Surge Narrows Marine Facilities License of Occupation. Move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B.
I will move that the Chair and Corporate Officer be authorized to sign License of Occupation number 245056 to support the reconstruction of the Surge Narrows Wharf, the construction of the marine components of the Surge Narrows Marine Revitalization Project, and the long-term operation and maintenance of both facilities.
Director Kerr, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Morwini, number 8.
Thank you, Chair. Owen Bay Wharf Reconstruction. I will move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Second.
Sorry, who seconded that? Director Bonesh? Thank you. Discussion.
If I may, Mr. Chair, so at the East, there was a motion from the committee to incorporate the concerns of Owen Bay residents in the Owen Bay Wharf construction. And I think this resolution would really tie the regional district and introduce a number of risks in the project, being financial, timing, permitting, regards to several other things. It is staff's recommendation, because the risks that are involved, that the board has already awarded a contract to the 3 wharves. Our low bid tender was significantly less than the other 2. It's tied to tight timelines, permitting, materials, design, and any change to that contract award resolution would, in staff's view, create some significant risks and challenges. And so it's staff's recommendation that the board continue with the direction that we've been provided.
Okay, on receipt, Director Morwini.
Thank you, Chair. May I speak to this report?
On receipt. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. It is unfortunate that there wasn't space on today's agenda to receive a delegation from residents of Owen Bay. I understand that they were hoping to, and they did present at our last electoral area services committee meeting, and they really spoke clearly about their concerns with the current plan for Owen Bay. I am not an Owen Bay resident, but they did elect me to represent them, and I've received many emails and phone calls on the subject, and I just want to share a brief understanding from me of their concerns. There are 2 main concerns, a couple which are related to the positioning of the dock and ramp, which they believe will cause access constraints for critical supplies. And there are further concerns with the materials that have been identified for the project, which may not work together, like aluminum and pressure-treated wood, which I understand is uncommon in coastal docks because of a chemical reaction with salt water. Again, I'm not an engineer. These are things that I've been told. Page 3 of the report that's attached there has the information that was presented to the Electoral Area Services Committee, including that Owen Bay is a thriving community of 95 people. On the water in Owen Bay, the concerns really center around the fact that the current dock location dries up at low tides, making part of the dock unusable. And the design positions pilings on the outside of the dock rather than within, meaning that the usability is significantly shrunk because boats can't tie up from one end to the other. It's punctuated with pilings. And due to an uncharted rock, which is just offshore, there is grave concern that access by the large barges may no longer be possible with the new dock as currently designed. So regarding the large barge access, as you will see, is referenced in the motion from the Electoral Area Services Committee. Residents of Owen Bay have repeatedly asked for confirmation from staff that the large barge, which delivers critical supplies, including crush for road maintenance, will continue to be able to access the barge landing. I know staff has responded that there was communication with barge operators, and they didn't hear that large barge access would be an issue. But in light of the significant community concern, which has been emailed to me and other people for months, I think that re-inquiring that all barges would be able to access the upgraded Owen Bay or the barge landing after the upgrade to the Owen Bay Wharf would be, really provide a lot of comfort to the Owen Bay residents. I don't know if that inquiry was made, but if so, I haven't heard that there's been a response shared with the community. And the presentation that came from year-round residents of Owen Bay, they're sometimes called down to the dock to move boats when they are rafted too deep for the barge to pass. And as you'll see on page 12 of the report, the new wharf appears to stretch past the area where vessels raft currently. So recently, the Hoskin landing dock was replaced, and this was a long time coming, and based on emails I've received, the community was happy to see the improvement. However, they are observing the construction of the dock, how it is not designed for the runabout boats that they most commonly use. And indeed, I've heard that it may swallow a boat in big seas. And they're really extrapolating from Hoskin to the upcoming Owen Bay and Surge Narrows wharf replacements. And there's really a strong appetite from community members in the Outer Discovery Islands that to correct what can be corrected in the design phase before more docks are constructed. Owen Bay community members have been eagerly anticipating their neighborhood wharf receiving these necessary reconstructions, and they're the ones that are expressing a high level of concern with the plan as it is currently laid out. You'll see in the report, there's a signed petition. And, you know, on the flip side, the CAO is recommending that we carry on based on prior direction from the board and not incorporate the concerns of residents, which was the motion that came from the Electoral Area Services Committee table. We are investing a lot of money in this project, and it's a single participant service, so all directors here are equally involved in the decision. And I know I've been saying a lot, but I just want to finish by saying that these concerns are coming from residents who travel by boat, like we use cars, and folks who work on the coast, they visit wharves up and down, and community members who know a lot more about this than I ever will. They are concerned that the new design may limit community growth for the lifetime of the dock. And I just respect their voices and I wanted them to be heard. So I'm very hopeful that we can possibly find a middle ground and incorporate the concerns of the Owen Bay residents into the design as much as possible, which was what the original motion was.
Thank you. CAO.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, just going to inform the board, the staff have consulted the community. We have lots of correspondence between the community. I don't know why the community is making statements that we haven't consulted them. I don't know why the director is saying we haven't consulted them. We have consulted the community. We have professional marine engineers that have designed it. We have funding constraints through the Transport Canada. We have consulted with the barge operators on it. We have permitting requirements. We have limited funding for the project, which doesn't enable everyone to get everything they want. However, again, I'll remind the board that we had 3 bids for the project. 2 of them, we would have no capacity to build. And if we make any alterations to this agreement, then it's very unlikely that the worst will get built. We cannot engage in having community members assist in the design of marine engineering structures. That would handcuff us. It would handcuff the process. Staff can't be accountable for the failure of the project, cost overruns, or the ability to have it completed. So again, my recommendation is to continue on with the board's direction.
Okay. On receipt, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B. Director Mawhinney.
Well, Chair, I would like to move that engineering staff incorporate the concerns of Owen Bay residents into the design of the new wharf as much as possible, with a focus on access for large barges, and that staff update the Owen Bay community on the process.
Sure, I'll second that.
If I may, again, I'm going to give the board a caveat. If that motion passes, staff cannot guarantee the success, the completion, or the financial implications of the project.
Okay, further discussion?
Sure.
Director Dahl? Sorry.
Will the electoral area director assure the board that the residents of Owen Bay will cover the costs of any overruns due to the late changes that are being requested by the electoral area director?
If I can too, Mr. Chair, just on the heels of that comment, the board has awarded a tendered contract to the consultant and the contractor. That is done. So you are going to instruct us to undo that. There will be consequences to that.
Director Von Esch.
Thank you, Chair. It seems like the biggest concern from the community is the access to the big barge and for critical supplies, and sounds like a valid concern. It sounds like we've talked to the barge operator. That operator has confirmed that they still have access. Is that correct?
Again, in the multiple reports, we've consulted with the barge operators and they have no concerns.
Director Mawhinney.
Thank you, Chair. To respond to Director Dahl, I think you asked me if the residents of Owen Bay will financially fund any overruns, which I am not in a position to respond to. I don't speak for them specifically, and I don't have access to their bank accounts, so I can't say that they would be able to do that. But, you know, it is for the community really important that they have access to the large barge. And the reason that it is an issue, the reason that the reason that there was a delegation to the Electoral Area Services Committee to talk about it, it was because people that have been on the ground at the dock and speaking to the barge operators have said, yes, we can get in here with our small barge, but no, we will not be able to get in here with the large barge. So that is where that information is coming from. Obviously, I'm a third party to that, and I can only ask staff to confirm that the large barge would be able to continue accessing it. That's not something that I can take on myself. I guess my question to staff is I absolutely recognize that the contract has been awarded, and some of the concerns that came from the community were really from looking at the RFQ that was on the internet, because they didn't have a lot of communication received from, and the report identifies this, through any of 2024 from planning staff or engineering staff. So I'm just wondering if there's a way to sort of combine both of these. Like, is there a way to incorporate these concerns as much as possible within the constraints of the contract that we have?
If I may, Mr. Chair, we're happy, again, there is small amounts of variation within the agreement, i.e. the materials for the barge, in fact, or for the wharfs. In fact, the operators proposed wood. I don't know where they got aluminum from the first place. That's part of the communication challenge. The design has been up on the site for over a year. I don't know how they're claiming that this stuff is new to them. They never saw it. We would never engage the public in an RFQ or the documents or the specifications for that. We have professional engineers designing. We've consulted with the residents. We've consulted with the barge operator. The agreement is signed, and it would be very poor project management to, at this point, start restricting and constraining staff and the contractor to input on design changes at this point. That would just be very poor management.
Okay, thank you for the last words, Director Mawhinney.
Just have a follow-up. Did you identify that there is opportunity for slight changes within the plan? Is that something that I heard you just say?
Yes, but I'm not going to commit to it. So I'll give you an idea that this is getting far too in the weeds, okay? When you put piles in for a wharf, envision the ocean and the muddy floor, rocks that can be on it. You can't pinpoint exactly where those piles are going to be driven to the millimeter. So there's ability, and you're forced to have some variation where those piles are. So there's slight variation in there. And there, again, the operator, I don't know why the residents are talking about aluminum over the wood, where the low bidder, as I understand, has offered a wood solution. So I don't know where they're getting their information from, but the board, I mean, the board can do whatever they want, but would be poor project management again to handcuff us by requiring, at this point in time, having us consult and make amendments to a design that has been produced by a professional marine engineer and awarded through a tendered process that has tight timeframes. If we don't adhere to that, we're receiving a bit of an economy of scale of the contractors doing other projects in the area, and we're the benefit financially of that. If that wasn't available to us, no wharfs. We would not have anywhere near the funding. So again, further constraining us at this point in time would be create significant risks to the projects, its completion and its financial viability.
Okay, we'll call the question. Director Mawhinney?
The motion that I made,
Yes, please.
it is the same one that I made at East, which was that move that engineering staff incorporate the concerns of Owen Bay residents into the design of the new wharf as much as possible, with a focus on access for large barges, and that staff update the Owen Bay community on this process.
Okay, so we'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? The motion's defeated. B, that staff continue to manage the Owen Bay Project Wharf Reconstruction Project based on prior direction of the board and the terms of the contract awarded to Pacific Industries Marine Limited.
Second.
Industrial. Thank you. Discussion? Sorry. Who made the motion? Who made the motion? Director Kerr. Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Mawhinney, number 9.
Proposed name change, Murderer's Bar. Move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Second.
Director Colburn?
And I believe Azlee will speak to this for us.
Good afternoon, directors. There was a proposed name change that came to the First Nations Relations Committee after having been sent to the board. On that correspondence from the provincial office that manages name changes, they had on that correspondence Hamalco. And so I reached out to Hamalco. I also reached out to that provincial office and gave some background of the Chilcotin War, in which the motivation for the Chilcotin government to make the name change from Murderer's Bar to Warrior's Bar. And they have good reason to want to change it. However, we operate within the territories of the Hamalco. And so I reached out to Hamalco, and they have asked us not to comment on this at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Call the question on receipt. Discussion, more discussion. Director Bonesh?
I really appreciate the background and you doing that work. Is there anything more you can share around sort of the reasoning for that? Is there
My understanding is that they are in discussions about multiple projects and they have overlapping territory. And until they resolve those discussions between them as nations, Hamalco has asked us not to comment on this at the time. I don't believe it's a conflict. It's just a matter of timing. And until they sort their business out, they have asked the SRD to stand down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? On receipt. Oh, Director Colburn.
I just have a question then. So were we expecting, a motion to follow this that says defer comment, or are we just going to receive the information and let it be?
Yeah, I think we're instructed to receive the information and then we will get further correspondence when there's been greater discussion by the Hamalco.
So on receipt, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Lanyon, number 10, please.
Thank you, Chair. UBCM ministerial meetings. I move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Second.
Director Goulburn, discussion.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, so this is just a list of meeting topics and discussions that I have either had correspondence individually from directors, staff ourselves have come up with them. They might have been ones that we brought in the past, ongoing issues or some new subject matter that has arisen over the course of the year. So the limitation again is just 3 meetings per minister. We've made sure these don't exceed that. However, this is just for the board's discussion. If they want to go with this, great. If they want to add to it, we'll need to hear that today, and we'll put some background and request information as this has to go in by the end of the week. So this is again just a summary of a sample of topics and information and background that that we've populated for the board. And if there's any changes, modifications, comments that board members would want to make, now is the time to do that.
Okay, on receipt, Director Bonesh.
Thank you, Chair. Really appreciate this list. Just add some comment on the rural housing one, if you're open to feedback. I think certainly for Cortez, the community sewer and water service is not the priority. I think the biggest priorities for me are, one is the housing needs report that we submitted to the province that said we only need 2 more rentals. I think that's just an issue that needs to be addressed, because that's what they're looking at when they're deciding what funding happens in rural communities. And it was, using their calculation method, it was just way off. And then secondly, it seems like housing from the province is an urban lens is being put on in the rural areas. And what's really needed is a rural housing stream, where they're looking at the needs of rural places uniquely from urban areas. So that's how I would adjust that one, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Yeah, can incorporate that. Thank you.
On receipt. Okay, Director Rice and then Director Mawhinney.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to add one more meeting, and that is a meeting with Housing Minister staff. So I'm not interested in meeting with the minister himself or herself.
Okay, and I'll bring a report later in the summer, probably next month, on staff meetings, but I'll put that on the list and just give some thought to, there's meetings with staff, which I think almost all of those meeting requests get fulfilled. So if you have, but they don't want duplication. So I'll bring a report next month and we'll look at staff meetings.
Do you need details for the meeting that I'm looking for?
We will, but we'll bring that forward later.
Thank you.
Director Mawhinney.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to Director Bonesh. I felt like those were some of the same thoughts that I was having regarding the rural housing needs. Just a couple of comments. The community water systems item, it talks about VHA drinking water standards and talking about to the Minister of Housing, but I'd really like to see us talking to the Minister of Health about that as well, or alternatively.
So just on that, if I may, Mr. Chair, there's a criteria and a matrix that the province has given us to what minister to link it to. So we've done that. So these are the ones they have to go to. And if you don't follow that, they'll get immediately rejected. So you may look at that and say, oh, geez, I don't want it to go. These are the ones they must go to. Otherwise, you won't get them. So some of them seem a little bit odd, but we're following their matrix.
Okay,
But
thank
the
you.
comments, absolutely, like if you have comments.
Okay, yeah, well, I guess I just was curious if it was an island health thing, why would we be talking to the Ministry of Housing? But apparently that's why. Okay. And then there's an item on the list there about connectivity and cell coverage. And I'm wondering if we've been talking about at the board table lately about payphones. And I'm wondering if there's a way to sort of, I don't know, shoehorn that into that same item. We've been advocating with CRTC and
Yeah,
okay.
we can do that.
Great. And then my last thought was that regarding the rural transportation item, really from my take from the committee of the whole meeting that we had last week, it really seems like one of the biggest barriers to a transportation solution is that BC Transit won't run routes on gravel roads. and access to Zabalas and Tassus is via a long gravel road. So I would think that maybe advocating for a change to that or requesting a pilot for gravel roads for the BC Transit maybe would be a way so that we didn't have to invent our own public transportation service, and just advocating for that would maybe be helpful.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, on receipt. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B, Director Lanyon.
I move that the meeting topics for the ministers as identified in Appendix A of the staff report dated June 17th, 2025 be submitted for meeting requests with cabinet ministers at the 2025 UBCM convention.
Second.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Wally, number 11.
Duncan Bay Fire Protection Service moves that the report from the CEO be received.
Second.
Director Monash, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B,
I further move that a further report and amendment bylaw be prepared for the board's consideration that would increase the annual requisition limit for the Duncan Bay Fire Protection Service based on amounts contained on the May 30, 2025 report from the CAO, and that the report investigate the schedule for obtaining approval of the bylaw by petition process.
Director Lott, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Wally, number 12.
I will move that the report from the CEO officer be received concerning the Sayward Fire Regulations bylaw.
Second.
Director Colburn,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if Tom wants to say anything in regards to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the report does outline that there are some options for the board, and really it's a question of what does the board believe is the best direction for staff to work on this particular item. We've looked at the Sayward Fire Regulations bylaw. They're fairly comprehensive, and I suspect they would not be appropriate for the electoral area, part of the service area. However, it's up to the board to decide and give direction on what they believe is the best approach moving forward on this item.
okay, go ahead, Director Wally.
Yes, just to let you know that I have a subsequent motion after receipt.
Okay, on receipt. Any further questions? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Wally,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would move that the village of Sayward continue to manage its own fire regulations within the village limits, and that the development of fire regulations for the Sayward Valley be not pursued further at this time. If I have a seconder, I'll speak to it.
Second.
Thank you. Yeah, my reason for this is we've had the Sayward Valley Fire Protection System as it now stands for 50 years. It's worked quite well. The residents do not want the same degree of management that the village has, and that's fine. We're two different jurisdictions there, so that's the way that the constituents would like to see it. Thank you.
any further comments? Okay, so still on receipt. Oh, pardon me, the new motion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. B. We don't need B, sorry, 13.
Yeah.
Director Wally,
Thank you. Sayward Fire Department out of area service provision. I move that the report from the CEO be received.
Second.
And Mr. Chair, Sean will speak to this for us.
Through the chair to the board, this report is a follow-up and a two-parter. The board had requested more information about these services that the Sayward Volunteer Rescue Department can offer outside of its service boundaries, approximately the Co-op gas station on the highway, if you're familiar with the area. When the fire department was under the village's jurisdiction, it has for the past 20 years been a road rescue service provider through emergency management climate readiness, where they get tasked to go out and help with motor vehicle accidents. In order for the fire department to continue operating that service now that it's under the regional district, we will need to sign an agreement with the province permitting them to do so. So that's part one. Part two is that if they wish to go outside their fire service area as tasked by BC Wildfire Service to assist with a wildfire, the fire chief had thought there was an agreement in place, and so did the village, but no agreement with BC Wildfire has been located. So that would need to be brought to the board and signed as well.
On receipt, any questions for Mr. Koopman? On receipt, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director
Mr.
Wall.
Chair, I'd move that draft agreements be prepared for the board's consideration that would authorize the regional district to provide fire suppression and road rescue services at no cost to the local ratepayers in the area outside of the fire protection boundaries for the Sayward Fire and Rescue Department.
Second.
Discussion? Sorry, Director Colburn. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Grant opportunity disaster resilience innovation fund. That the report from the CAO be received.
So moved. Second.
And Mr. Koopman will speak to this as well.
Through the chair, I am seeking the board's blessing to go after just over $2 million through this second intake of the Disaster Resilience Innovation Funding Grant. The Stream 1 portion, which is equated to just less than $500,000, will focus on watershed assessments on Quadra and Nooka Island, as well as a landslide risk assessment in Tassis. The about $1.7 million portion for Stream 2 would focus on a generator installation at the Jerry Morgan Memorial Center in Gold River to allow the village of Gold River to provide redundant heating and cooling services to vulnerable populations during a power outage combined with a extreme weather, extreme temperature event, as well as physical restoration work being done on Nooka Island, replacing old logging bridge, outdated culverts, and adapt that infrastructure for climate change and to properly flow with the watersheds there.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment here. I was inspired that last week the NDP had their caucus meetings here, and we had a couple ministerial meetings at the SRD. One of them was the Emergency Management Ministry, which she brought her staff with them. And I want to say Mr. Koopman put on a presentation. They were very impressed. It highlighted the numerous projects and awards that the SRD has got from the province. And they were very receptive to Mr. Koopman, very complimentary of his imagination and his creativity of all the applications that he submitted. And it was clear they have a very close relationship with the SRD and Mr. Koopman. So it was a very positive meeting. So,
okay. Director Wally.
I'm just curious, what's the name of the community out there in Nooka Island?
Through the chair, that is a wonderful question. So currently there is no community on Nooka Island. This is a sustainable development project with the Nuchatlat First Nations intention to resettle a portion of their population there, as North Nooka Island is their traditional territory.
Thank you. So on receipt. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Lott, would you like to take B, please?
Application to the 2000 Disaster Resiliency Innovation Fund grant program be submitted on behalf of the local government and First Nations, and titles identified in the June 2025 report from the Chief Administrative Officer, and that the regional district commit to overall management of the grant if the application is successful.
Second.
Director Rice, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Chapman, 15, please.
Thank you, Chair. Emergency Operations Center Grant Award. I move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Second.
Director Rice, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I move that the 2025-2029 financial plan be amended to incorporate $360,000 from the 2025 Emergency Operations Center grant to fund the activities identified in the June 10, 2025 report from the Chief Administrative Officer.
Director Lott, second. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Kerr, number 16, please.
Move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received. Light Urban Search and Rescue Proposed Service.
Second.
Director Rice.
Mr. Chair, Sean will speak to this as well.
Through the chair, the regional district is in receipt of Campbell River Search and Rescue, inquiring if the board is interested in establishing a regional light urban search and rescue service. Light urban search and rescue is the rescue of trapped subjects from non-complex buildings. So picture your average, household, single family unit dwelling. If a car hits that building, if there's a structural failure, if there is an earthquake and that building is compromised or damaged and there are subjects trapped inside, Campbell River Search and Rescue has members trained to go in and rescue them. However, the province has removed light urban search and rescue from a recognized search and rescue activity that they will provide the liability funding for their volunteers. So when ground search and rescue volunteers, emergency support service volunteers, radio volunteers, the road rescue we previously talked about, they are go out on behalf of the province when tasked to do so. They are provided with a very generous liability coverage and WorkSafe coverage that's shared between the province and the federal government. The province has now, about 5 years ago, taken that out of light urban search and rescue. Campbell River Search and Rescue has been humming and hawing about how to continue this service because they have members trained. They have acquired a trailer with this equipment through grants, but should they go out and utilize their skill sets to rescue somebody and get hurt, they're not protected the same way the firefighters would be. We've checked with the Municipal Insurance Agency of BC, and they have confirmed that the regional district could offer our insurance package to this service if it was, of course, implemented the same way we do for the Sayward fire rescue volunteers. So this is just an initial report of, is the board interested in me digging this rabbit hole further or stop it today?
Director Wally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Area A, Sayward Valley, and the village included, we have our own search and rescue, part of our fire department. In the 50-some years I've been there, we've never had a building collapse. I don't expect one to happen, but if it were, we have our own search and rescue to take care of it. To expect someone to come up from Campbell River, take an hour to get there, and be a little bit late, everybody stand around, prick their nose when they show up. So I can say that there might be some communities that aren't that far away interested in this. It could be a sub-regional service, but Area A is not interested.
Mr. Coopin.
So through the chair, I have to add a correction on that. Fire departments are not trained to go inside those type of damaged buildings. That is a completely different skill set.
If I might, Mr. Chair, they may not be trained. I'm sure training is available, but regardless, if someone's in a basement and the house fell down, I'm sure they're not going to stand around and watch. I mean, I'd volunteer myself.
When I was on the fire department, we were not allowed to enter any structure at all, regardless on the situation, whether it's fire or somebody trapped. You are not allowed to enter the structure.
Yeah, so through the chair, I believe it's only the City of Campbell River Fire Department that is trained to the interior standards in of the firefighting standard. No other fire department in the SRD can enter a structure for any reason.
Okay, Director Wally?
Yeah, Mr. Cullen, this may be the rule, but it hardly makes sense that we're going to wait for an hour for somebody trapped somewhere for assistance. And I mean, other communities are hours away. I mean, there has to be another way. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be the fire department. I mean, a list of volunteers are going to rush in and help. I mean, this is silly.
So the question of the board, Director Mawhinney?
Thank you, Chair. Were you going to say something else? Because I just had a question about this, and it was specifically that we would be, because this is a section of the Campbell River Search and Rescue Society, right? Or it's one action that they do. So are we expecting is that idea to create a service that would be ensuring just the piece of the light urban part and the rest of their work is separately operated still?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may, this is just a motion that recommends a report that would provide the details of what that would look like. We're not asking the board to commit to a service. We're saying there's an issue out there right now. Does the board, it's mostly about liability and insurance. Is the board interested in seeing a report about what that would look like?
Thank you, Chair. I'm curious to hear from Campbell River folks. It sounds like the fire department does that work in Campbell River. So I'd just love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. And for Cortez, again, I think, we're not going to wait 2 hours for these guys to show up to pull someone out of a building. So I don't think it's something that I'm particularly interested in.
I think it was pretty clearly stated that we already have the coverage, so this won't benefit the city of Campbell River.
Director Kerr?
Thank you. Just a question. Like we talked about a car hitting a building and it be structurally unsafe, but what about the situation of a major earthquake?
Yeah, so through the chair, these are all comments that the further up report would address if asked for. I can say that I brought this idea to the regional fire chiefs meeting. Every fire chief at that meeting was in favor of looking into this further. No, my understanding is I do not believe that the fire department can enter if it's not related to a fire first. I can say all fire chiefs are interested in this potential service and assistance. And to just also say, it's a regional service. So just because it may start, it could be a regional service. So just to say that it is right now starting with a trailer with already trained volunteers in Campbell River, that doesn't have to be its limitations. We can train groups on Quadra, Cortez, throughout the regional district in this skill set.
Director Colburn?
That's something that I was going to ask actually, if the equipment can be deployed once other people are trained in it. The reason I'm asking is because of the like out of service area conversations where you can't necessarily, so I would expect in a large earthquake or something like that, there would be a lot of work for them to do here. If there was something like a car going through a building that was specific to a community, then that's something completely different. So that's what I was wondering about if it would be, the intent would be to train up other departments so thanks for that.
Okay, Director Chapman, then Director Wally.
Thank you, Chair. I was listening to the discussion and I agree. I mean, if someone's trapped in a building waiting, 2-3 hours is absolutely ridiculous. But we have these things called helicopters. And if more help was needed, we could helicopter them into the site. So I'm in favor of looking at this. I think there's some benefit to it, to the region overall. And so let's open our minds and take a look.
If I may, just for clarity, Mr. Koopman can explain. So how does the Campbell River Search and Rescue currently then provide their liability and coverage to their volunteers?
When they're engaging in ground search and rescue activities, that's covered by the province.
Right, so what is going to change in terms of that? So
the SRD would be the ones providing their liability coverage for light urban search and rescue.
Right, and so how does that not affect the city though? like their Campbell River Search and Rescue?
They would become SRD volunteers that also happen to be member of Campbell River Search and Rescue.
Right, and Campbell River Search, so let's say the board's not interested in pursuing this. Campbell River Search and Rescue still has their liability insurance through where?
Through the province when they're deployed for ground search and rescue.
In Campbell River.
Throughout their whole service area up to the Bellas.
Okay, Director Wally, then Director Rice.
I like that idea of training local people to do this function, and I could certainly be supportive of that. So if we do end up with a report on this, I'd like to see that be an aspect of it.
Director Rice.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say that I would agree with Director Chapman that it doesn't hurt to take a look at another report and see what it says and make decisions based on a little bit more information than what we're currently getting right now.
Okay, so we're on receipt. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried, and we have options A or B.
I'll make subsequent that we pursue option A, that a further report be prepared to investigate the cost and schedule for creating a regional light urban search and rescue service that encompasses the questions that have been brought up here. Thank you.
Second.
Director Chapman, discussion. Director Wally.
Just a question of staff, do you need an amendment to consider training
No.
local groups?
No, it's all right. No.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Winnie, number 17.
Thank you, Chair. Policy CP036, recording regional district meetings. Move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Director Wally, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Number 18, Director Dahl.
Oh, may I move? I would like, there is options in
Oh,
number
I
17, and I was
apologize.
going to move option A.
I apologize. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to move option A, that the policy CP036 be amended as shown in the copy attached to this report to exclude advisory planning commission meetings from being recorded.
Second.
Director Bonas, discussion.
Oh,
All in favor? Opposed? One opposed? Director Lanyon? Motion is carried. Director Dahl, number 18.
That the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Second.
Discussion? Director Mowini.
Thank you, Chair. I was really happy to see the Community Health and Wellness Committee looking at potential regional housing service opportunities. So thank you to those committee members. And I just wanted to suggest that Habitat for Humanity be included in the list of organizations for consideration.
Further discussion on receipt? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B.
That a report be prepared that explores a range of options and considerations related to housing service opportunities, and that a preliminary list of potential stakeholders such as builders, developers, and relevant nonprofit organizations who could provide insight on these opportunities be compiled and brought forward for the committee's review.
Second.
Director Rice, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Rice, number 19.
Strathcona Community Health Network Strategic Plan 2024 to 2027. I'd like to move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
And Mr. Chair, Madison has a short presentation to go over the strategic plan for the board.
Good afternoon.
Not the BCR presentation, I doubt you're gonna provide.
All right. Through the chair, some of this will be new for you. For some people, you'll have seen this once or a couple times. But essentially, the new Community Health and Wellness Committee has reviewed a strategic plan, and these are some of the high-level results of that. So just a little bit of background. In 2023, the previous Health Network table came together with a consultant to formalize a path forward. And some of the findings from that are moving forward into this new iteration. In spring 2024, the strategic plan priorities were finalized by the Health Network table of partners. And then in fall 2024, this board made a resolution to develop a new model for the health network, which is the Community Health and Wellness Committee. In May of this year, the appointed members to the committee made minor changes to the strategic plan for 2024 through 2027. And today, the committee hopes to have the strategic plan endorsed by the board. So the overarching mission is to improve the health and well-being of communities in the Strathcona region by focusing on upstream approaches centered on the social determinants of health. And our guiding values are to exchange knowledge and build understanding of those social determinants of health, strengthen relationships and build trust by recognizing the common challenges for Strathcona region, identify unique community development issues throughout the region, and align and amplify impact on those shared priorities, as well as engaging in collaborative problem solving with community partners and encouraging innovation and efficiency. So shortly put, the strategic priorities that were agreed upon at a high level are network development. So that includes collaboration, communication, information, and advocacy. 2, relationship building and engagement, and 3, capacity and action on the social determinants of health. So under those 3 priorities, 1, network development, the priorities are to just have a broader scope in the community, communicate and provide outreach to partners, and just make sure everyone knows who we are. Be a network of networks, essentially. Expanding membership appointments. So we're kind of getting there. Our table is almost full. I think we have 1 seat available, but just making sure that we have a full scope of sectors and representatives at the table. And focus on relationship building with the business sector. They've been a sector that's been left out of the committee and the previous iteration. And then in action, some of these priorities look like recently attending the ABICC trade show as a participant and talking to local elected officials, with other island health policymakers and health network coordinators. The Campbell River and District Shelter Food and Support Guide, which is a brochure that overviews some of the community projects that are happening in Campbell River specifically, and then looks out to the district for vulnerable populations and some of the needs that they may have.
for the board's consideration. And then there's a recommended motion, which is not that motion.
Well,
Are we at number 6 with respect to the bylaw 615?
Yes, we are.
Yes, that this with regard to Northern Area D water supply agreement, that the report from the CAO be received.
Director Chapman, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
I'll make a motion that bylaw number 615, being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement for the supply of water to serve electoral area D of the regional district, now be introduced and read a first time.
I'd like to second that.
Director Lott, discussion. Director Rice.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say thank you to staff for making this happen. And I also want to say thank you to the City of Campbell River directors. Much happier with this bulk water agreement than the previous one, so thank you very much.
All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
Yes, and I'll make a motion that the rules be suspended and bylaw number 615 be given second and third readings.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
And I'll make another resolution that bylaw number 615, being electoral area D bulk water agreement authorization by law 2025, be reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
Second.
Director Potash, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Correspondence.
Mr. Chair, I move that the correspondence items 1, 2, and 3 be received.
Thank you. Second, Director Colburn, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I move the report from the CAO will be received on our closed session.
Okay. Do I have a second? Director Mulwady, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Did you guys want to take a 10-minute? Wow, that's kind of unanimous.
So anybody who wants food, doesn't matter if you make.
Okay.
Who gets food.
We should, oh, wait a sec. Let's do B. Wait, thank you.
I'd like to move that the meeting be closed to the public to consider matters deemed to fall within the parameters of subsections 91A, C, D,
It's
E,
chaos.
F, J, N, and O of the community charter.
What wants money?
Director Mannion, second.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah.
All in favor? Opposed? Okay. What did we miss under correspondence? We have an ask on number 2, the Sayward Community Food Table Society. That June 2nd, 2025 correspondence be received from the Food Table Society and grant and aid request be received. It's already been received. So there is an ask. Everybody get a chance to read it? Director Mawhinney, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I read that item of correspondence and I recognize that has quite a few different pieces that they're looking for funding for, including things like dehydrators and smokers. You know, Quadra Island also has similar organizations that do have an equipment lending library. But at this point, I would wonder, you know, based on the request of this ask, if it would be appropriate to refer this request to the Community Health and Wellness Committee for a discussion, because I think that it has regional implications and that should be maybe considered as we move forward.
Discussion. I'm not sure where it falls under what you're suggesting. Could you? Yes.
Well, I thought that it really seems like they're talking about the social determinants of health, which I believe fall within the purview of the Health and Wellness Committee. And I guess what I'm thinking is there's probably a lot of organizations that, or there may be, I know there are on Quadra, there perhaps may be on other places too, that have similar interests and might require similar funding. So I'm thinking that it might need a regional lens when we look at this.
Okay. Director Dahl?
I think that it would have been appropriate to have voted on whether they get the grant and aid first. And if they don't, then send it to a committee that isn't going to discuss this for 3 months.
Yeah.
Director Bonesh?
Yeah, I agree with Director Dahl there. And it does seem like they do great work. $5,000 does seem a lot for a grant and aid. I know electoral areas, we have quite small amounts. So I'd be open to doing something smaller than that to be able to support them still, and looking for thoughts from Dr. Wally as well.
We have a motion on the floor. Your motion. That's correct. So on the motion of deferral, all in favor?
It was referred to.
To refer.
Just to reiterate on that referral, it would be 3 months before the committee looked at it, I think.
Yes.
So we can refer it and we can also decide whether they get a grant today, right?
Well, if you decide on a grant, that makes the referral pointless. I mean, you can either support, defeat the motion, or withdraw it. If the committee wants to discuss voting on the motion, again, the motion that's on the floor, support, defeat, or withdraw it.
Director Dahl?
If we're gonna do deferral first, I will vote against this motion.
Agreed. Okay, all in favor?
I'm willing to withdraw my motion of referral.
Oh, thank you. Motion's withdrawal. Do we need a motion on the $5,000?
Yeah, I think it's too much. I'd refer to Director Wally on maybe a more appropriate amount, given the budget he has left.
I'll make the motion for the $5,000.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
Now we
thank
can
you.
discuss. Just curious, where does the money come from? It comes from the total overall budget, and Campbell pays 70% approximately?
Yeah, if it's a regional grant, yes. Well, it seems like it. I mean, there's only regional or electoral area, so I didn't assume that you were talking about electoral area A based on
I
past
assumed it
history.
was electoral area.
Oh,
A.
yeah,
No.
you're gonna get the stink eye there. Director Wally, your intent wasn't to fund this out of electoral area. Yeah, so I think we're talking about regional, yeah.
So we're talking about regional grant and aid. Okay, so 5,000 motion on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Thank you. Now we move to termination.
Terminate.
Second.